All right, what is up, guys? It is Slick Muff here, back again with another video here with Jester Bell. Her channel will be linked in the description below, as it always is. Today, we are talking about the new DC film slate. This is the DCEU 2.0 Phase 1. James Gunn just announced it, and it is getting a lot of attention online. A lot of people are shitting on it and really, oh my God, I just got demonetized because I said the customer.
Oh no, the 15
Whatever, I don't
rule.
care. Whatever, I don't care. So basically, this new slate just came out, and a lot of people are really upset. Some people are really happy, and there's a lot of people kind of in between. Personally, I'm pretty happy with the slate. We'll go over it, and I understand some of the concerns. There are some things I'm concerned about. For instance, the Brave and the Bold. When he was announcing it, James Gunn, the new studio head, CEO of DC Studios, said that Damian Wayne is the best Batman. Okay, or the best Robin. Interesting take. So there's some things to pick apart here, and we'll get into each of these films. But just kind of your overarching thoughts, Teresa. What do you think about the announcement yesterday?
I was fine with it at first, and then I started to think about it more, and then I did a video, and then I was listing all of my concerns. So there's things on the list that I like, there's things that I'm indifferent, and then there's the stuff with Batman I'm really nervous about, and it really makes me concerned. So that's overall. I wasn't mad. I wasn't really disappointed because of all the disappointments that have come out from DC. Like, it could be a lot worse, but I'm not thrilled so far. So we can get into the details as we go on.
Yeah, and also it's important to know that all the films coming out before 2025 have a release date. The Brave and the Bold does not, unless I'm mistaken, but I'm pretty sure it doesn't. So Batman 2 comes out October 3rd, 2025. The Superman film comes out in 2025. So I would assume that this movie, Brave and the Bold, comes out like 2026, which is going to be a bit jarring to have two Batman movies back to back in years, but we'll see. So we're just going to go through the slate and exactly as it's coming out, and this is the exact order that James Gunn announced it. The first being Creature Commandos, which is a 7-episode animated series written by James Gunn that is already in production. Originally a team of classic monsters assembled to fight Nazis, this is a modern take on the concept. The voice actors have yet to be cast, but the executives are looking to find people who can voice the animated characters and also portray the live-action versions when the anti-heroes show up in movies and series. So this is a really interesting thing that James Gunn announced that's getting a lot of criticism, which is that there's going to be complete continuity from the animated films to the movies to the animated TV shows to the regular television shows, live action TV shows, to the video games even. So he even said that the video games, it's implied, are going to have the same actors as the films. So on the one hand, that's good. That creates a lot of continuity. On the other hand, that does create a lot of barriers for creatives really across the board that are doing both the video games, particularly the video games, but also the television shows, having to use these actors. So you're going to see with this new DCEU, overall, I'll just say I generally like this move. And people might say, but that's so stupid that you have to use the same actors in the video games and the movies. Okay, but one of the big problems with the DCEU and why it failed is because their contracts were shit. They didn't have actual contracts. So like when you do a Marvel movie, they sign you to like an 8-movie deal. So you do the first movie, it's like, all right, if you're going to be in Avengers 1, you've got to do 8 more movies after this, and you're going to get this huge paycheck, but we're going to commit you to completing the arc of this character. The DC movies didn't have that. It's just like, yeah, just come do Batman v Superman, and we'll see what happens after that. It's like, that's not going to work, and that's why the whole cast fell apart, at least part of the reason. So generally speaking, I like this move that James Gunn is thinking forward, and he's thinking, okay, I'm going to lock in these actors into a multi-movie, multi-show, multi-game contract where they're going to get paid a bunch of money, but they're going to be committed to the role. So I kind of like that part of it, even though it does present the issue with the game side. But anyway, what are your thoughts on Creature Commandos being the launching point here, and the announcement that everything is going to be connected, just like Marvel?
So with Creature Commandos, that's one of the things that I'm indifferent of, because as much as I am a DC and Marvel fan, like James Gunn, he makes deep picks that even I had never heard of before. I've never heard of Creature Commandos. So that's one of those things. Oh, by the way, we were just talking about all the hatred for James Gunn's wife, and I remember this was terrible, but somebody took the picture of Creature Commandos and said, oh yeah, James Gunn casting his wife and everything, and circled one of the creatures, and I thought that was terrible. But anyway, we won't talk no more about that. But anyway, Creature Commandos is one of the things that I'm indifferent of. It's like you can just go do that if you want. I probably won't watch it unless people tell me, no, you have to watch this, it's really good. with everything being connected, first of all, I want to point out something from Marvel, because DC is still chasing Marvel and trying to be like them. When Disney Plus was starting up, well, first of all, this happened with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and the ABC shows, where Kevin Feige was like, yeah, the TV shows connect to the movies. And then they didn't like that anymore. So they're like, okay, that's not canon anymore. So the Disney Plus shows, you have to watch the Disney Plus shows in order to tie in with the movies. And they were hoping that that meant that all the Marvel fans were going to do that. And then it didn't work.
Right.
Little known fact, most people have seen Marvel. Most people have not watched the Disney Plus shows. I know I have friends who watch all the Marvel movies. They could not be bothered with Disney Plus shows. I thought it was kind of interesting. But even if you look at like the Nielsen ratings that came out talking about like the top shows that are watched, none of them were the Disney Plus shows whatsoever. So I think that it's harder to connect people across these different mediums than you would think. I think that there's going to be hardcore fans who are going to play the video games and watch the cartoons and everything. I think stuff like Creature Commandos, you say, oh, this is the start of the new DC universe. Most people are just not going to even care about that, I think. I have mixed feelings in terms of keeping actors and contracts for all of them, because I think it's a little bit, it's sort of throwing all of your eggs in one basket, and then it's not. And this is where it just kind of gets wonky to me, because on the one hand, it's like, okay, say we're throwing all our eggs in one basket so that this universe works and that everything's connected. That means that, if there's a version of the character, like let's just say Superman, for example, who maybe he doesn't work in the movies, or maybe his story isn't that great. Well, then that means that we can't get something like, I'm rambling a little bit, but say Spider-Man PS4 comes out, and Spider-Man PS4 came out when some people weren't happy with the Homecoming movies with Tom Holland. And then Spider-Man PS4 gave us traditional Spider-Man. So that was a avenue for us to get a traditional Spider-Man when some people weren't happy with the way the movies are going. And I kind of feel like if you interconnect it so much, then that is actually a lot of restriction for the same story, and a lot of risk. And which is why I believe, we'll get to this later, Matt Reeves didn't want the Batman to be connected to it. Not that I think that the problem is that he doesn't want Batman in a universe with other characters, but that he doesn't want to feel like his story is confined to having to be a puzzle piece in some executive's bigger story. So, but on the other hand, it's like they say that everything is one big connected piece, and they're taking on the video games and the cartoons and all that stuff. But then they're like, oh, and there's Elseworlds, where we can have two Batmans on the big screen at the same time. So it's like, but it's really not. So it's kind of just wonky to me. Like it's just kind of weird to me that that they would say that, like it's always been that way. We've had our main universe, and then Marvel has other stuff that we know isn't connected. But now they're kind of saying two things at once, like it's all connected, but then it's not. And so it's just weird to me.
And going on top of that confusion, Teresa, then the second show that they have is Waller, and this show features Viola Davis, who was Amanda Waller in the first Suicide Squad movie that's no longer canon, and the second one, which I guess is canon, ? Even though it's before the reboot, because it's like James Gunn's thing. So like all of James Gunn's stuff is still canon, and then nothing else is. Zack Snyder's stuff isn't.
Well, but he said his cop out is that the Flash is going to reset everything, and then he keeps some things, get rid of other things. The things he's keeping are conveniently his things.
Every writer uses Flashpoint to just like anything that doesn't make sense. It's like Flashpoint. The
Flash is just a plot device at this point.
He is. That's the oldest trick in the book. Okay, so in a spin-off of Gunn's own HBO Max series, Peacemaker, Viola Davis will return as a ruthless and morally ambiguous head of the government task force. It's written by Crystal Henry of Watchmen, interesting, and Jeremy Carver, the creator of the Doom Patrol TV series, which has gotten a lot of really good reviews. So this is a really, again, it's interesting to start so early with this, because it is going to create confusion amongst the fans. It's like, wait, okay, so like this is Amanda Waller from like the 2016 Suicide Squad movie. Where's Margot Robbie? Where's all? Yeah, I mean, maybe I'm selling the audience short here, but I just think for a casual audience member, it's going to be a little confusing to me. But I might be wrong. Overall, cool show. I'm more interested in this than the first show, the animated show, Creature Commandos. But we'll see. I think that with Star Wars and with the Marvel films, and the Marvel shows on Disney Plus, we've seen a little bit of like, okay, maybe these C-list characters that are getting shows really shouldn't, like kind of part of the appeal of a Disney Plus or an HBO Max or whatever kind of thing is that you can get these deep cut stories. With Star Wars and to some extent even Marvel, it's like sometimes I watch these shows and I'm like, yeah, this character didn't need a show. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like this might be the same thing with Amanda Waller as
Yeah.
I'll watch it and we'll be like,
It's weird because what I was thinking this entire time, and I'm kind of disappointed at this. I've been thinking this since Suicide Squad 2016 was panned by critics and all that, and there was all that controversy. I was like, they need to just restart this whole thing because it's just flopping. But they still are not fully rebooting. But I'm like, if like even Gal Gadot, like just because even though Wonder Woman 1984 flopped, there's still a lot of defenders for her performance. I'm like, even Gal Gadot staying, which right now I gotta say it looks like she's not. Even that makes more sense, like Amanda Waller. Not that Viola Davis is bad casting as Amanda Waller, but it's like she's appeared enough, and she is not like as one of my subscribers pointed out to me on YouTube. They said it's kind of like in the car crash. The only thing you save is the cup holder, and so that's how he was referring to Amanda Waller. That she really does. She's really not important, and she's really not core to anything. You don't even necessarily need her in a DC universe. And so if you're going to like hold on to characters, and the ones you're holding on to are like C-listers, I'm like, well, just reboot the whole thing. And what I think it is James Gunn wants to keep his people, and he wants to keep his people happy. That because
100%.
The Waller show is already in the works, and the Peacemaker season 2 was already greenlit. So he wants to keep those people happy. I don't really care about Amanda Waller, really. Apparently, so the rumor is of what the show was going to be is that Amanda Waller goes on trial for creating the Suicide Squad, and so she needs to cover up her tracks. So she's going to hunt down and kill, hire a hitman to kill all of the people involved with that program. So that sounds interesting, but it also sounds like something that requires like the first 2 Suicide Squad movies to lead into it. So that just doesn't make sense to me. Really quick before we move on, I talked a little bit about Margot Robbie on my video of it. Here's the deal with her. She is very, very busy as a producer, not just as an actress, but as a producer. It's why there was a bit of a question mark on whether she'd even be able to do the Suicide Squad 2. Once again, contracts and scheduling is kind of wonky with DC. So I think if James Gunn puts her anywhere, it would be in the Waller show. But there's another thing, though, that Margot Robbie has not done TV in a major way since before she broke out in Hollywood. And so that creates a question mark for me would she actually be interested in doing this? And then there doesn't seem to be a clear movie for her going forward. So I'm just wondering, well, why don't you just eventually bring in a new version of the character? But that's a big question mark for people because they're like, but James Gunn has talked about how much he loves her, and he seems to be doing things to keep his people happy and keep his team together. They even noted that the 2 actors that are still rumored to be on board, Aquaman, Jason Momoa and Ezra Miller, showed up in Peacemaker as a cameo. So they're like, these are all the people that Gunn has worked with. So we have to see if that works out. I would have preferred a full reboot. And if you're just carrying over Amanda Waller and Peacemaker, it's like, why didn't you just reboot that as well? Like, apparently the only person that they don't care about offending is Henry Cavill.
Yeah, and don't forget James Gunn's wife. She's probably going to be she's going to be Thanos in this new universe.
She's going to be the new Superman, obviously.
Okay, so speaking of Superman, the next film on the list is Superman Legacy. This is being written by James Gunn. It does sound like a direct-to-TV, direct-to-DVD title for a movie, but okay. Superman Legacy, the movie, featured the Man of Steel that Gunn is writing and may direct, although no commitments have been made. While the 2 previous titles are meant to be partifs in Safran's world, Superman is the true kickoff for the duo's DCU plans. It's not an origin story. It focuses on Superman balancing his Kryptonian heritage with his human upbringing. aka every Superman movie ever. He is the embodiment of truth, justice, and the American way. Also, every Superman movie ever. So again, I'm trying to understand what is different about this film, and of course, there will be a way. Like I think that James Gunn, the mark that he's going to leave on the film, is making it kind of comedic and fun a little bit more, whereas Zack Snyder's take on Superman was a bit more melancholy, to put it lightly. I think that with this film in particular, it's going to be a little bit more lighthearted, jovial, kind of fun. That would be my prediction of also. James Gunn has been seen reading All-Star Superman multiple times on Twitter. He posts about it a lot. So I think that All-Star Superman is going to be an inspiration, going back to my prior point about the mood and general tone of the film. So it comes out July 11th, 2025. We still don't have a Superman at this point. But anyway, your thoughts on kind of, and this is what he said in the film, or in the 5-minute video, not the film, the little 5-minute video. He said that this is like the real quote unquote kickoff to the new DC universe. So this is kind of going to be the first like mainstream. Obviously, the first two, Creature Commandos and Waller, are just going to be on television. So this is going to be the first theatrical hit coming out for the new DC universe here. So yeah, what do you think about that and launching with that?
So I had a different interpretation of the premise they gave us. So for years, Warner Brothers has been saying things like, we can't do Superman because he's outdated and we don't understand how to make him relevant. I don't know. They think that his optimism and like the Boy Scout nature of the character, or the perceived nature of the character, is like dated or something. And I said, you know what, if you think that's dated, why don't you do a movie about that? Like he has maybe a view of the world that people don't think is real, or that it maybe is dated or something, and that is challenged, which is essentially what the plot of Captain America, the Winter Soldier was. Like those Captain America movies explored that a lot. So this movie sounds like that, and it's not a straight up origin. I'm still thinking that they might do do a little I don't have a word for it, a little flashback of the origin. I don't think that they can resist. But I'm actually looking forward to it. I think Superman Legacy is just a terrible title, though.
And, it really is.
Things can change, though. Like especially with DC, they have changed sometimes with Marvel. But I think like Endgame and Infinity War, it was originally like Infinity War Parts 1 and 2, and it wasn't Endgame, but that was a title change. Anyway, so as long as they change the title, I'm all for it. And I'm all for a lighter Superman movie that's more comedic. I just don't want the James Gunn's Guardians humor to come into it, because that's not how I see Superman at all. I think that it was Irogen on Twitter who posted actually a faux script of James Gunn's Superman with all the Guardians humor, which is really great. But it's an example of what I don't want the movie to be. But writer. I don't think that Superman is I don't think that kind of humor fits Superman, but I think that James Gunn is going to try to insert some of it into the movie.
Yeah, I certainly agree. So, okay, Superman Legacy. Then the next one is Greg Berlanti's long in the works Green Lantern's TV series has been scrapped, and Gunn and Safran have parted ways with Greg Berlanti. So that's kind of mostly good news. In its place, there is a new take on space cops and power rings. Our vision for this is very much so in the vein of True Detective, Safran described. It's terrestrial based. Will feature prominent Lantern heroes Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart. I really like this. I'm going to be honest. I really, really like this. The one thing I don't like is that it's on TV. Don't like that, because I think with Green Lanterns, the CGI required, it seems like something that you would need on television, on film. I mean, look at the first Green Lantern film and how much money was spent on that, and it was still shit. So I think that to spend a fraction of that amount of money on a television series is going to be a little bit difficult, but I look forward to seeing what they're doing. And again, they'll probably get around it by doing the whole True Detective thing, where there's actually not that much like CGI and not that much action. So that's probably the direction we'll go with it. Overall, I like this though. I like this, and also seeing Hal and Jordan together, very smart move, because you sort of subvert or sidestep the whining of inevitably if Hal's chosen, everybody's like, "Where's Jon Stewart?" and vice versa. If you pick Jon Stewart, everybody's like, "Where's Hal Jordan?" Oh, so you kind of avoid that nonsense, which is good. So.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. I think that this probably should have been a movie as opposed to a TV show. It was originally going to be a movie. The one thing, like, I love Jon Stewart. I'm a Jon Stewart person. I'm not a Hal Jordan person. But once again, the compromise between the two is good. The one thing that makes me not so excited for this is because this has been in development hell for so many years. First, it was going to be a movie, then it was going to be a TV show, and then the premise of the TV show that we were getting changed so much, and then the creatives that switched around, and then we're not going to do it. Oh, actually, we are going to still do it. So it's kind of just dragged out for so long, and there still isn't a release date. So I'm just like, I need to see this thing. I actually need to see some actual product from this, because it's been a very long wait. I remember they said they were going to do a Lantern show with Hal Jordan, Jon Stewart, Guy Gardner, and Alan Scott for HBO Max initially, and that never showed up. So this is a project that has been in the works for so long. I need to actually see something from it before I get excited for it.
Yeah, fair enough. So I'm excited to see that personally. Then next we have The Authority, which is a film. So again, this is weird. Like, you're going to make The Authority a movie, and you're going to make Lanterns an HBO Max show. Okay. So on The Authority, they say one of the things of the DCEU is that it's not just a story of heroes and villains, said Gunn. Not every film and TV show is going to be a good guy versus a bad guy. Giant things from the sky come and good guy wins. There are white hats, black hats, and gray hats, added Safran. They are kind of like Jack Nicholson in A Few Good Men. They know that you want them on the wall, or at least they believe that. Okay, so they don't really give any details on what The Authority is. Again, just weird. Like, so the second movie that we're going to get in this new DCU, of course, excluding The Flash and Aquaman 2, and now they're even saying there's going to be an Aquaman 3. If I saw that correctly, Peter Safran was saying that. So yeah, you're going to have The Flash, and you're going to have Aquaman 2, Superman Legacy, and then The Authority in theaters. It's like, okay, all right. Again, I would have put The Authority on HBO Max and put Lanterns on the silver screen, but I don't know. That's just my gut.
Yeah, The Authority is another one of those DC projects. Like, I have never heard of that. The only two things I've heard from it is Midnighter and Apollo. I just had to review a comic with them. They're a part of The Authority, I guess. Like, never heard of this group before. Apparently, what they're doing is The Authority. The plan is that eventually the Authority is going to fight Superman, and that's why it's in a movie, I guess. But it just seems like it's definitely a James Gunn thing from what I've heard about it. And he said that Midnighter and Apollo is like one of his favorite DC couples or something like that. But it's like, this is, I know everyone hates Grace Randolph, but she did make a good point, because I did listen to her coverage. She said this, I'm sorry for quoting Grace Randolph, but she said this feels like a DC a la carte menu almost. And I kind of agree with that, because it's sort of like, okay, we're doing Superman, and then I know we'll get to this Supergirl, and then Creature Commandos, and then The Authority. And it just sort of feels like a little bit randomly picked. And once we get closer to it, we're going to see more of a plan. But just like from a standpoint of just hearing these projects, it's like, I don't understand how this connects to this, or why this is getting a movie and this is a TV show. So that's why it off the bat does not excite me, because it's like, okay, here are things I've never heard out of before, and you're getting a movie right after Superman, and I don't really see the connection. I guess they're gonna fight. It's like, okay, to be fair, maybe that's how people felt when they were like, okay, we're gonna do Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, and then Suicide Squad, which was never as popular as DC has made it out to be. But I guess we'll see how it works out. Hardcore niche DC fans are excited about getting this movie because they think it's going to be interesting. I'm not seeing how it's going to fit, and I don't think The Authority, from what I've heard of it, is a mainstream thing at all. So once again, it doesn't seem like, this is talking maybe more from a marketing standpoint, but it doesn't seem like this is something that connects, like it's going to make DC have consumer confidence and get people watching every movie. It just doesn't sound like that so far.
So I completely agree with you. And one of the things that's really interesting about this, the whole list that we have here, just going big picture, is like, I feel like the titles that they're running with are either A-list, Batman, Superman, etc., or D-list. And there is like a huge in between there of B-list, cult following characters, books, storylines, whatever, that they could have utilized that would have big cult followings that people would show up to. And this is kind of, I think, an advantage that DC has over Marvel, because I think that DC, in my opinion, has a little bit more of like B-list characters with cult followings, like Red Hood, for instance. We'll just use an example.
Oh, a Red Hood movie announcement would get people going crazy.
That's what I'm saying. So, but instead, we're getting an Authority movie, and like, do you see what I'm saying? It's like they're either A-list or D-list, and I just don't understand the like the deep cuts here. They're a little bit too deep, I think, because when somebody who has been reading DC Comics for as long as I have, I'm like, oh, I have to search them up to remember kind of like what it is. I've never seen some of these in back issues. Like the Authority, I don't think I've ever seen it in back issues.
Yeah, I'm gonna make up an argument. It's kind of like when Marvel said we're gonna do the Eternals, and I was like, what on earth is the Eternals? Like nobody was questioning them. Like a comic book guy that I follow, he brought up a comparison. He's like, so when Iron Man comes out, people ask you, when you're a comic book person, like, who's Iron Man? They ask you for all the answers, and they're like, and he's like, nobody asks you questions about the Eternals. So here's what I think about these deep cuts. So it's very James Gunn, and I was completely against James Gunn being the CEO when it first was announced, and this is part of the reason why. Is I'm like, he has a very specific sensibility. He loves doing D-list characters and making them into whatever he wants. And most of these projects are D-list characters. There's some that are obvious, like you should do something with Green Lantern, you should do Superman and Batman. But mainly we've got Green Lantern, which is on TV, Superman, and then 2 Batman films. So, and then I guess Supergirl. I would argue Supergirl is B-list. She's just kind of a weird pick for a character who's a sidekick when we haven't really established this universe. I'm getting ahead of myself, I know, but that's what I was really, and it's like, I'm not angry that the Authority is getting a movie. I have no idea what it is. I'm just like, it's just kind of like, I can't be mad, but I just don't really get it. And I said this on my channel once again. I said, it feels like this is just, we're all playing in James Gunn's sandbox, and we're all playing the games he wants to play with, the toys he wants to play with. And that he's mainly making decisions for himself. Like, it's like he said, okay, here's 1 for you and 3 projects for me. That's kind of what it feels like to me. Like, I'm sure that there'll be a connection to this universe, but I'm not sure about how it's all going to connect. It doesn't seem, but it seems like Eternals, honestly. We'll see how it works out.
Well, here's a few examples. I just pulled up like DC Comics titles, and I just found 3 while you were talking off the top of my head that would be more popular, right? So like an Azrael spin-off film or TV show. Even Catwoman. I know that didn't go too well when we tried a Catwoman movie before, but Catwoman she's a big cultural icon, like a lot of people dress up for her as Halloween. She's very, very well known, and people would go to just be like, oh, fuck, it's it's Halle Berry, it's Catwoman again, that sort of thing. And then I forgot the third one that I had here. Oh, even Hawkman. Jonah Hex could be good. Dr. Fate. These are all these are B-list choices instead of D-list. I
want to throw out Green Arrow and Black Canary, like either with one of those heading a movie. Too. They have big cult followings. Like that would get people excited if you had a straight up Black Canary movie. Or
absolutely.
Nightwing, but I guess that's Batman spinoff. That's kind of Supergirl adjacent. But
we'll get to that. There's no Dick Grayson in this universe. We'll get to that.
That's true. Oh, we'll get to that. That's going to be a moment for me.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, we're almost there. Okay, so just before we get to the Brave and the Bold, we have Paradise Lost. So the duo describes this HBO Max series as a Game of Thrones style drama. Okay, first of all, you're really making you're like, this is going to be our Game of Thrones. Okay, well, it better be really, 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 really good. Like, you're setting the bar very high on that. So, anyway, drama set, all-female island that is Wonder Woman's birthplace. I don't know why they don't just say it's the mascara, but they don't in this article. Political intrigue and scheming between the powerful players that takes place before the events of the Wonder Woman films. Okay, so like an origin story to Wonder Woman, that's fine. So what do you think about this being a TV series? I think this is smart to put it on TV instead of the silver screen.
I'd agree with that. Honestly, I keep forgetting this one exists, and I'm sorry to say that. By the way, this is another project that has been in the works for a while. There was supposed to be an Amazon show on HBO Max originally, like written by Zack Snyder or something like that.
I didn't know that.
That was a long time ago, and I guess this is it coming back. It feels like they just want to have something Wonder Woman in this universe without it actually being Wonder Woman, because Gal Gadot is still relatively fresh and they don't want to actually get rid of her. But I feel like they're purposefully building to a point where they're going to get a new Wonder Woman in this universe. Especially I think that they just don't want the axe to drop just yet. They're kind of easing out of it. So I think this is their doorway.
They've seen how it's worked with Henry Cavill and the fan backlash. And if they drop Gal Gadot, it's going to be the same thing. Not quite as intense, but it will be the same thing.
Well, to be fair, I feel like if they had dropped everyone, like after Henry Cavill was out, people had kind of gotten on board with the idea of, okay, this is it. This is the anvil's dropping. We're finally gonna get to this new universe. But you won't satisfy people if Gunn keeps all of his people and then gets rid of all of Zack Snyder's people
and keeps Aquaman 3.
Yeah. So
right, because it's like, why do we get Aquaman 3 but not Man of Steel 2? Why do we get Aquaman 3 but not Wonder Woman 3? That's a question I would rather see. Personally, I'd rather see Wonder Woman 3 than Aquaman 3. And I know that Wonder Woman 2, a lot of people didn't like it. I didn't mind it nearly as much as most people hated it. I didn't mind it that bad, but I get it. Wonder Woman 2, all right, it wasn't as good as the first one. But why no trilogy? Yeah, I don't
know. Money, that's why.
Unless
Aquaman made
we scrap everything and start from zero, which is what I prefer. I prefer that you just fire everybody. Fire Aquaman 2. Get him out.
Yeah, I think everybody would prefer that. And they haven't officially announced an Aquaman 3 yet. These things have a pin in them just because they have movies coming out this year. And if they do well, then they're going to want to keep them. But Wonder Woman, The Paradise Lost, I don't really care about a Wonder Woman show without Wonder Woman. So it just kind of feels like a placeholder. And another person I heard noted that sometimes when you announce so many projects at once, like 10 projects at once, this is especially happened with DC, a lot of things don't actually come to fruition. So things like Paradise Lost, I'm wondering, I think that Superman is happening for sure. It's dated. Some of these things are happening for sure, but Paradise Lost, I'm like, well, let's see if it happens or just falls through the cracks. Let's see.
That's actually a good point. You're exactly right. Like the Batman to the Superman movie, I would even say the Brave and the Bold. Those things are definitely happening. Those are like the things that they can't afford financially to drop through. It wouldn't, and Creature Commandos, that's happening because it's like James Gunn's thing. But the things that aren't James Gunn's thing, I do wonder, The Authority, Paradise Lost, those things happen. We'll see. All right, so next we have the Brave and the Bold. So this is the entry of Batman into this new DC universe. And I'll just read it right here. This is the introduction of the DCU Batman, said Gunn, of Bruce Wayne, and also introduces our favorite Robin, Damian Wayne, who is a
gosh.
The movie will take inspiration from the now classic Batman run written by Grant Morrison that introduced Batman to a son he never knew existed, a murderous tween raised by assassins. It's a very strange father and son story. And importantly, will feature a Batman not played by Robert Pattinson. Okay, so yeah, I'll just give my quick take on this. What drugs are you on to say that Damian Wayne is your favorite Robin? I swear, I've done this experiment before. I've run a poll, and my audience is it's 120,000 people that are all Batman fans. There's nobody that's subscribed to me that's not a Batman fan. Okay, and the poll was under 10% said that Damian is their favorite Robin. It's Dick and Jason by far take the cake in terms of the top two. Typically, Jason wins. But Dick is a close second, and then Tim and Damian are far behind. So for him to say just nonchalantly, our favorite Robin, it's just kind of weird. It's the way that he says it is very nonchalant, as though it's not a hot take. It's dude, that what you're saying is a huge hot take, right? This would be like me saying my favorite Batman movie is Batman Forever. Everybody would be like, what? And it's the same thing as saying my favorite Robin is Damian Wayne. He's going to be the definitive Robin in our universe. And he just kind of says it. He just says it. It's it's
okay, I have thoughts and feelings about this. Right. This is the announcement where I think my soul died in the middle of it. Okay, so where do I begin? So first of all, this whole time when we're getting new announcements, I was kind of I don't care what happens so long, because what I really care about is Batman and the Batman universe, and I'm very happy with Robert Pattinson and going forward with that. And that's why I was
they weren't going to announce a Batman movie in this universe?
So I thought that James Gunn was just saying doublespeak when he said that Matt Reeves' Batman was separate, but that Batman is a big part of the universe. I'm like, he's just playing word games. Like, we'll see how it works out.
Right.
So I didn't know that he was actually literally telling the truth there, because he has talking out of both sides of his mouth at different times. So that's why I was like, just finish up with Margot Robbie's Harley, get that character back in the Batman universe, get all my Bat characters together. I'm good in the Batman universe. Let them go eat themselves alive in the other DC universe. I'll just come in and out as I please. Okay, now we hear that the Batman, I know I'm getting ahead of myself, but the Batman is in Elseworlds, actually. It's not anything connected to the main universe. And you might not feel this way, but once again, other people I've heard mention this, that sometimes when you say Elseworlds, it's kind of like you're saying this doesn't matter. And so that's kind of how I felt. Like they're saying the Batman universe, oh, that's not the true Batman. Like the DC universe, the real mainline DC universe is this different Batman that James Gunn is going to get. And that brought up all kinds of questions with me that, okay, does that mean that the Batman 2, that they're going to like cut the universe off there? Because the way one article worded it made it sound like the Batman 2 could be the last thing in the Reeves verse. Like they'll just do 2 parts and then be done. That's not been confirmed, but either that or you have 2 Batmans in movies running at the same time. I have heard lots of different opinions about that working. They say that mainstream audiences know the multiverse, they can handle it. I kind of feel like having 2 Batmans at once undermines each one of them for what you're doing. And to have, like, I imagine, let's say I'm Robert Pattinson, I just got people on board with my take.
I agree.
Now there's another person coming in, not in something that seems wildly out there, like the Joker movie was clearly not a traditional comic book movie. It wasn't supposed to be. But to have just 2 Batmans that are going to be, I would say, very similar. I think that the DCU one is going to be more like fantastic and comic booky, while the Reeves verse is more like Nolan, but still they're going to be pretty similar. I think that's a horrible idea, and then it just killed my hype for the Batman, because like does this stuff even matter anymore? But then you got Damian Wayne. I have been waiting for Dick Grayson and Batman to team up in a movie for so long. They have not teamed up since 1997, and I was so excited when I saw people teasing
and that
Batman.
Doesn't count. It doesn't.
Yeah.
Doesn't count.
They were teasing Batman and Robin picks, and I'm like, oh great, we're gonna get the Batman 2, and Dick Grayson is gonna be in there. Nope, psych. You're gonna get a Batman and Robin movie with Damian Wayne. Damian Wayne, who is my least favorite Robin. And here's why I think that James Gunn doesn't think it's a hot take. Damian Wayne has been shoved down our throats for like 15 years, where people didn't like him. He has been made the main Batman and the main Robin and everything. He has been inserted into everything. He has gotten, I think, like he's gotten more attention than Red Hood.
He got a whole movie, Batman and Robin, the animated movie.
Yeah, he has gotten so much. And I don't know, maybe I thought that we were moving away from that a bit with Tim Drake being the other Robin in Gotham Knights. But no, we're shoving Damian down your throats with this movie. And then that makes me think, okay, so at the very least, I guess they could bring Dick Grayson into the Batman universe. I don't think that they will, because they don't want it to be too similar, right? But you're skipping over Dick Grayson and Red Hood and Tim Drake to get to Damian Wayne, no one's favorite Robin, for this new movie. And then you say, oh, that's our jumping off point to do the Bat family. And I'm just like, no, I would say if I had one choice that I could make for this universe right now, I would say don't make The Brave and the Bold, which is what the movie is called. Not that you can't do a Batman movie that is a bit of a different tone, like a bit more unrealistic than what Reeves is doing, or that I'm against Damian Wayne ever appearing in film. I'm just like, you have something good with the Batman. Don't clutter it with a new universe like this, because I'm thinking, if I'm talking to a friend and the Batman and Robin, I'll just call it that, is coming out, and I'm like, oh, you're going to see the new Batman movie? And they're like, oh, with Robert Pattinson? I'm like, oh, no, this is a different one with the different actor who's playing Batman here, and it's with his son, and it's in a different universe. Like that is going to confuse people so much. It's not even like the Raimi and Webb Spider-Man movies that kind of came out linearly over time. No, this is the same time, and nobody complained about the Batman. Everyone was pleased with that version of Batman, but you got another one.
And it makes sense from James Gunn's perspective, because if you're in James Gunn's seat, right, and you have to make this universe money as quickly as possible. His contract expires in like less than 4 years at this point. So he's in a race to collect money for Warner Brothers. What is the fastest way to do that, Teresa? To make money?
Batman.
He's
like,
Batman movies.
But then David Zaslav was like, there's not going to be 5 Batmans, which I took to mean that you're not going to have multiple versions of the same character, which is what I thought that having.
He meant literally there won't be 5. There'll just be like 3.
Yeah, I thought it was gonna, because he said everything needs to be connected. There can't be more than one version of every character. And now I feel like Anakin Skywalker in Revenge of the Sith. Liar! That's how I feel after this.
Right.
So I am not
yeah.
I'm not happy about this.
It's interesting. I see where you're coming from. Also, the self-interested Batman fan in me, because I can delineate, and I'm like, okay, this isn't, I like, you and I both understand it. I, as a fan, I'm kind of in the position of like, the more Batman, the better. Warner Brothers, they need money. Okay, so this is the fastest way for them to make money. It is confusing for the audience, and it's also unprecedented in the sense that, like, I don't know. Can you imagine if there were 2 Iron Men at the same time? It was like Robert Downey Jr. and then some other dude. Like it would kind of detract. It would detract from the character a little bit, right?
Yeah,
and it's the same thing of like if Christian Bale was Batman alongside, I don't know, some actor, like some other actor who was playing Batman at the same time. Because normally it's like, oh, this guy's Batman for this time. Like you have the mantle for a bit, for like a decade, and then you pass the mantle on to somebody else. So now we're getting into a very weird territory where a character as legendary and iconic as Batman, who does kind of deserve his own spotlight, maybe a little bit more than he's getting at this point. I do wonder if you devalue the character by having too many movies. But I think, again, for Warner Brothers and Discovery, I think they need money. I really do.
Well, I just show you. I want to give you an example of what's happened in the comics, because that's kind of they have diluted Batman so much in the comics. Like, this isn't exact numbers, but let's say that DC is releasing 100 comics, comic book series. 80 of those are Batman. That is how much Batman there is right now, and it's making it so that all their sales are going down because Batman fans can't keep up because there's just so much Batman. I'm not saying that they can't keep up with 2 movies, but I'm just saying that it is possible to dilute a character and make people feel a little bit disillusioned by it when it's being undercut by that. And
like Tom King's run was doing really well in terms of sales, but then they started coming out. They're like, oh, Tom King's run is doing well in sales. Let's create more Batman books. But they always do this every time. So then in the Rebirth, they just kept doing all these like spin-off books on Batman. And then all of a sudden, people aren't buying the main book as much because it's, to your point, it's very flooded.
Yeah, and what was I going? What was I?
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, it's okay. We're interrupting each other a bit. So, what was I about to say? Oh my goodness, it was important. So, wait a minute, I've got it. Don't go. The thought. Yes, I got it. Oh my goodness, why? Okay, when people interrupt me, I forget what I was about to say.
My apologies.
So I'm gonna say a different thought first. So I was talking to my sister about this, and because she watched the Batman, she enjoyed it. She is definitely more of a casual Batman person, though. So she just asked me the other day, "Oh, so was there any news today on the Batman 2?" And I'm like, yeah. Let me explain to you what's going on here. So there's gonna be the Batman 2 in October 3rd, and it's Elseworlds now, and then there's Batman and Robin, and with a new Batman that's not Robert Pattinson. And she's like, "What?" And so that's just my example of how casual people react to this. And there's my thought that I was going to say. Contrary to popular belief, there have never been 2 of the same DC character in movies, because people will say, "Oh, Joaquin Phoenix and Jared Leto." Jared Leto was out of movies, and that's why they did Joaquin Phoenix. And they have Barry Keoghan as Joker, but he's not officially signed on to anything yet. So Joaquin Phoenix is still currently the only Joker on screen. So they've never done 2 full movie Batman characters before. So I think that it's a bad idea. And that's why The Brave and the Bold, I say I would not make that right now. I would keep with the Batman. But it goes back to they're like, everything needs to be connected, and we can't have it. And we want to make Matt Reeves happy. We don't want to oust him out, but everything needs to be connected. And I think it goes back to James Gunn wants to have his own Batman, whether it's for monetary purposes to get DC money and to stay on, make them happy with him, or just he said that it's his favorite Batman story. So he wants to play with his Batman toys, essentially. So that's why we're getting this.
Right, and you really look at it, and the Batman made 770 million at the box office, which actually, you kind of think, "Ooh, is that underperforming?" I don't know. Not really. It's about what BVS did, and then also if you look at Batman Begins, it made 373 million at the box office, so about double what Batman Begins did. And then you think, okay, if you're doing your second movie and you're bringing in the Joker, which it seems like they're doing, then you'll easily hit a billion there. But it does raise the question also, The Dark Knight didn't have to compete with another version of Batman. It didn't have to compete with like some other star director and some other star actor and their take on it, So it's you're right. It's interesting. It does kind of devalue the character a little bit. I'm going to be honest. From a brand perspective, I don't know that it's the best thing to do. From a fan's perspective, I think we're spoiled, and this is probably like the only time this will ever happen for the rest of our lives with Batman. I don't think that they will do this ever again, but we'll see. So yeah, Damian Wayne, okay, I guess. But I think you're right. I guess because in the Batman 2, they probably want to use Dick Grayson, right? It's the first Robin.
I hope so. I'm worried that Dick Grayson is getting shafted like he always seems to with Batman. Here's what I was really worried about. What I was worried was going to happen is that because the first rumor that came out from a leak was that Bruce Wayne isn't going to appear in the DCU and that it's going to be Dick Grayson and they will reference him but not show him. And I'm like, so it's going to be like Gotham Knights all over again or something. I was worried about that. Here's what's going to be funny is so Matt Reeves have sounded a little bit trepidatious about bringing the Joker into the Batman 2. Here's what would be really funny if that happened. If Matt Reeves is like, I can play ball. And he's like, okay, I'm going to bring Joker into the Batman 2. We're going to make $1 billion and we're going to compete and make more money than the Brave and the Bold with the Joker in that movie because Joker makes money and that they make more money than the Brave and the Bold. And he's like, yeah, this is my Batman. We're making more money than you right now. That'd be amazing to watch.
It would be. I agree. All right, let's move on to the next movie, which is, well, we already kind of talked about this. The Batman sequel. Pattinson will continue to portray the Dark Knight in at least one more Crime Saga, directed by Matt Reeves.
There's at least one more. That's what makes me nervous. Like they're going to axe him. Like when we just got introduced to him, they're going to axe him.
Will be released October 3rd, 2025. The Batman Part 2. So, yeah, what are your predictions or what are you hoping to see from the film?
Honestly, I mentioned the Joker, but honestly, I think with what Barry Keoghan has said, what's possible that could happen is they're not going to do any Joker-y stuff, and that Matt Reeves is just going to tell the story he wants to tell. He's either going to do Court of Owls or Mr. Freeze or any of those characters that he said, or maybe he will want to do the Joker. I don't know, but if it ends up being his last forage isn't the right word, his last voyage into this universe, he's just going to do whatever he wants in the movie, and I'm sure Catwoman will come back to make sure that no loose ends are left tied up. But I really don't like that because it's like we just got Robert Pattinson. I'm very happy with that casting. I'm fine with everything they're doing in this universe and what they could be doing. And then there's the feeling like, oh, are we gonna have to let go of this all of a sudden and then like go through the motions again with a new Batman coming on film like at most 2 years later. And so I want to see the Batman. I want to be hyped about it. But at the same time, I'm like, haven't you already invalidated this? And because you've said it's Elseworlds, aren't you saying that it could go away at any time? Like if you really want, if you want people to just be focused on the DCU Batman, you're going to make the Batman universe go away. I'm really worried about that. I don't think that they're going to go as all in on like Penguin spinoff and all those stuff they were planning on, Arkham Asylum show spinoff, which I really wanted to happen. Yeah, I want that. That's probably still the movie I'm looking forward to the most, but that my hype is definitely diluted because I feel like they're kind of invalidating this universe already, and I'm worried like, okay, are we like I don't feel like I'm actually going to see the Batman expand and build upon the mythos in this new universe like I wanted to, because now we've got other stuff going on that's being taken by the DCU Batman. So that's how I feel about it.
Well, like I just asked the question. Imagine if Chris Nolan had learned that they're doing when he was making The Dark Knight in like 2008, that there was going to be another director doing Batman. Like he probably would have just quit, He would have and part of me does wonder, is Matt Reeves. I mean, he seemed excited on Twitter, but
you can make yourself sound like anything on Twitter.
I don't know. He might just be like, fuck this. I want to be at the center of attention, which, by the way, that might sound petty, but from his perspective, it does make sense because that's what every single director has had the ability to have when directing Batman films, whether it be a trilogy, whether it be
Yeah,
one
it can
movie.
be theirs. Their time in the spotlight.
It's their time in the spotlight, then you pass the torch. Now there's no torch. It's just like a ring, and you all stand in the ring, and you're like fighting for the spotlight.
Yeah, it's like a carnival where there's different Batman attractions, and you just got to go to each one. Like, I think that this is a terrible idea, and we're kind of seeing the eclipse of Batmans here, and I don't think that it'll ever happen again because I think that at the very best, the movies are gonna undercut each other, and I already sense that people. And that's what makes me so upset because I'm like, okay, whatever happens, I can enjoy the Batman universe. That is untouched. And now that is not untouched. It's undercut.
Yeah, totally. All right. What do we have next here? What do we have next? We're getting towards the end of our list. We only have 3 more things to discuss, but 3 pretty big things. Okay, so Booster Gold, an HBO Max series based on unique, lesser-known hero. It's pretty popular, but okay. Created in 1986, Safran said the series, it's about a loser from the future who uses basic future technology to come back to today and pretend to be a superhero. Gunn described it as imposter syndrome as superhero, which interestingly is also the backstory for a villain, Abracadabra. I just made that connection that they kind of have like the same exact character. Anyway.
Okay, I'm going to tell you the casting of Booster Gold. It has not been announced yet officially, but this is just factual of who it's going to be. Chris Pratt. There is no way on planet Earth you get a James Gunn produced Booster Gold show that's a comedy and Chris Pratt doesn't play him.
You're right.
Tell me who else you think that James Gunn would possibly hire for Booster Gold?
James Gunn loves his friends.
Yeah.
He loves his friends and his wife. So
well, I would hope that he loves his wife at the very least.
So
East is gonna be James Gunn's wife.
Yeah, maybe. No, I agree with this. So yeah, overall, what are your thoughts on putting this in the slate in phase 1 Booster Gold?
When I saw it, I was like, what? I was like, okay, now we're doing characters that I know, obvious characters like Superman, characters I've never heard of.
Booster Gold, like A to F list. Would you say he's like C list? Maybe even B list, but he's C list.
I almost want to say he's D list, except for I know him from I first was introduced to him from Justice League Unlimited. So he's well known, but it's like at the same time people aren't paying for a Booster Gold ongoing. It's kind of like
he doesn't have fans, but he's known.
I want to say he's sort of like where Ant-Man was right before he got introduced to a DC. Not DC, MCU, but it's like Ant-Man. Everybody knows Ant-Man because he's been very prominent in comics, but nobody is clamoring for an Ant-Man anything. So that's kind of how I see Booster Gold. And it's like, yeah, you can do that. I don't know why it's the part of the first phase other than you just want HBO Max content, which kind of makes me feel like they're just spamming out HBO Max content like Disney Plus did. Like we have a Moon Knight show and a She-Hulk show and all these different things that actually didn't go anywhere. So it kind of feels like that. I think it is just an excuse for James Gunn to get together with his buddy Chris Pratt again and make a show. That's what I feel it actually is. And it could go either way. I heard someone say it could either be the best thing ever or the worst thing ever. But it's another one of those things similar to like we go Superman and then the Authority, where I'm like, yeah, you can do that. But I don't know why you made that specific choice other than maybe you want to make a role for sure for Chris Pratt. So that's my thoughts on it. I don't hate Booster Gold. I don't have a problem with it at all. It's just like, I don't know why you chose this really, if you're constructing a universe you want everyone to be invested in.
Yeah. Again, I just see this dichotomy between the characters being A and D list. And of course, I see what James Gunn's doing to some extent. With the B list characters, you have a lot less flexibility and freedom to do what you want with them because there are certain expectations around what that character is. But we have seen characters like the Joker, for instance, who I would say is A-list clearly, but really reinventing him and using him in unique ways. And the fans didn't get pissed. No fan was like, this isn't like the comic books, you know? Like everybody was saying this is a cool iteration on the character. So
are you talking about the Joker movie?
Yeah, the Joker movie. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. I was the fan saying this isn't like the comic books before I saw the movie.
No. With Suicide Squad, okay, that's different. But with but with Joaquin Phoenix, it was so different and it was so out there. that I feel like because it was executed well, and that was kind of the difference between the Suicide Squad film, is that fans are willing to accept something being dramatically different from the comic books insofar as it's executed well, right? So people were not tolerant of some of the gangster Joker stuff in the Suicide Squad film because it wasn't done all that well. But the Joaquin Phoenix Joker changes were done really, really well, and fans were okay with it. But with Booster Gold, it's just they're really going to have to lean into marketing around a big star. It's going to be kind of like, I guess, how they were trying to market Black Adam, that like put a big star behind it, but that didn't work out too well. So I don't know. That's just kind of where I sit on it. It's like, it's okay.
I will say, in terms of Chris Pratt, I think that the Twitter is going to hate it when he's cast, and he's going to be cast. There's no question about that. Chris Pratt has a very good track record of bringing people in on streaming things. Like, I think, what was the first one? The Tomorrow War and Terminal List. Those are
Why
two
do people
things.
on Twitter not like him? Is it like political stuff?
He proclaims to be a Christian, and he really made a speech about God and following God, and they Twittered people associated that with him being Republican, even though he has never said anything political in his life.
Okay.
And so that's why they are angry at him. And like he made an Instagram post about how much he loves his wife, and apparently that was offensive and sexist or something. And so that got them mad. But anyway, even from just an executive standpoint, it makes sense to bring Chris Pratt in just because he does draw people to watch his show. So it would probably get a lot of eyes on it, honestly.
Yeah, you're right. And he has a lot of pull. He really does. And I think Guardians 3 is going to do well at the box office. So, okay, Supergirl. All right, we're down to our last two films. And both of these I'm really excited for and I think are really, really good. Okay, so Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, taking its cues from the recent Tom King written miniseries. The movie promises a different take, which I've not read the Tom King series. I've read some of the 90s Supergirl, and I've read the New 52 Supergirl, which I thought was really good. New 52 was really, really good. That's kind of what the Injustice film was based on, was New 52 Supergirl. But anyway, we'll see the difference between Superman, who was sent to Earth and raised by loving parents from the time he was an infant, versus Supergirl, raised on a rock, a chip off of Krypton, and who watched everyone around her die and be killed in the terrible ways, blah, 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 blah. She's much more hardcore and not the Supergirl we're used to. So that kind of sounds more like New 52 Supergirl. The New 52 Supergirl was like super like edgelord. Everything in the New 52 is edgelord. Just kind of like she's really pissed, kind of rough around the edges, kind of like a badass female archetype kind of character. And then the CW Supergirl was a little bit more lighthearted. A little bit, yeah. I would say generally it's a little more lighthearted, kind of fun take on the character. So. Given that we already got a pretty good take from Melissa Benoist on the Supergirl, the more optimistic Superman-esque version of the character, I'm down to see it. I'm down to see this. I'm down for this. What do you think?
So I think the mindset, once again, it was this and the next project you're going to talk about. It was kind of like, oh, you're doing that to me, because a Supergirl is like Red Hood. It's like Dick Grayson, where those are very popular characters, but they're also technically sidekicks. And so you're kind of wondering why you're doing a Supergirl movie so quickly. I think the reason it's happening is they can't do a Wonder Woman movie right now because of the gal situation. That would be controversial to get rid of her. So like, who is your next most popular female superhero at DC? Supergirl, I would say. Agreed. And so that makes sense to me. Also, I think that because they're going for such an optimistic approach for Superman, they want Supergirl to appear very different. And I honestly see the vision. I see kind of a darker sci-fi approach, and it could be very interesting. So the more I think about this one, the more I want to see how it turns out. I like the very traditional, lighthearted Supergirl, but I'm willing to give this a chance.
So what I would have done here, just to differentiate between Superman and Supergirl, which I guess are probably 1 year apart. They don't say explicitly, but it seems like 2025 versus 2026, just reading between the lines here. Just to differentiate them, because the characters, all right, they're trying to like, in the copy here, they're trying to really differentiate between the origin stories. They're like, oh, well, Supergirl, she was like on the rock and it was totally different. It's like, bro, they have the same origin story. Their home planet blew up and they got sent on a ship to Earth. Okay, yeah, it's a little bit different. Supergirl came at age 13 versus age like 0. But let's be real here, people. It's the same exact origin story. Okay, so putting that aside, the way that you could differentiate it is to have Supergirl and Batgirl team up. And this has been successful in the comics in the past. And it also, I just think it'll attract more fans. I don't know this to be true. My gut is telling me that Batgirl has more general pop culture awareness, probably from the '60s show. I just think more like kids dress up as Halloween than Supergirl, right?
It's weird because people seem to I'm just talking before I really got into superheroes and I was just a casual. People seem to be very aware that there was a Batgirl, but they wouldn't necessarily know who she was. Like I knew about Batgirl. I knew, oh, she's the girl Batman. That's what I understood. So I didn't know specifics about her character or anything like that. So some of these characters are just recognizable.
Everyone in the world knows Batman, Batgirl, Robin. Everybody knows Robin. But to your point, nobody knows. Most people don't know that Supergirl exists. They'll be like, "Oh, I guess that makes sense."
I would counter. I knew Supergirl exists before I got into superheroes, just because I understood that there were like female counterparts to these characters. Like there's Supergirl, there's a Wonder Woman. Well, she's not a counterpart of anybody, but there's a Batgirl. So
there's
Supergirl
Wonder
film.
Man.
Yeah, I didn't know there was a Wonder Man, but
no, there's not.
So I don't think that Supergirl and Batgirl, people aren't going to know specifics about Supergirl. I would say, but like Supergirl, Batgirl, it's Batman and Superman branding, so I think people would understand that.
Yeah, they just don't know, like, oh, it's Kara Zor-El. Like they're just like, oh yeah, it's.
I didn't understand Supergirl. Any of that before I got into it.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, on the Batgirl side, it's like nobody's like, oh yeah, I'm a huge Stephanie Brown or Barbara Gordon fan. People are just like, oh yeah, Batgirl. Okay. Although I will say that the Barbara Gordon is clearly the most iconic version of Batgirl. Most people, I think, imagine her with red hair, but that's just, I think, because the '60s show and because of the, which is a really interesting thing, and the fact that the TV show created Batgirl and then sort of reverse engineered it into the comics. And with Batgirl, they really did away with her. The New 52 from Gail Simone, I really liked. I thought it was really, really good, actually. Didn't sell super well, so they got rid of that, and then they kind of went like super poppy with it. They gave it to the writer for Gotham Academy, or Gotham University, I forget what it's called. And so it kind of went this like tween kind of poppy direction, which like, oh, that sold even worse. So then they canceled it, and they're like, oh, nobody likes Barbara Gordon. So
yeah.
And then, of course, like 5 years from now, they're going to boomerang back and be like, Barbara Gordon's coming back. It's like
after all this abuse from having a Batgirl movie and then the shelving it. So Batgirl has been like one of the most misused characters of the past 10 years.
Yes. And I was personally really excited for that film. But from the sound of it, that movie was going to be god-awful. So, it's like, okay, I'll just take their word for it. I would have rather seen it, but I'll take their word for it. So yeah, that's what I would have done here. I would have mixed in Batgirl. I think it would add more box office appeal. I think you make it PG-13 and try to market it more towards like teenage girls and women. I think that it could do well in that demo. Making the Supergirl though, like this badass sci-fi, like dark and scary movie. Now you're just kind of appealing to men, which is fine. But I think that narrows it a little bit, if I'm being honest. So that's what I would have done with it. But I'm not paid any money to do this. I just my videos just get demonetized on YouTube.
The Kobe universe.
James Gunn gets all the money. Okay, Swamp Thing is our final film on the list. A horror film that promises to close out the first chapter of the DCU. Now, everything that we were saying of like, oh, it's either A-list or D-list, that's obviously an exception with Supergirl and Swamp Thing. Swamp Thing is a B-list character by all means, in my opinion. He does have a following. He had a television show. He's been written by, obviously, like the greatest comic book writer of all time. Did one of his biggest runs on Swamp Thing. So he's a well-known character, and I'm really excited to see this. This is one of the higher rated movies for me out of the slate. Something I'm excited to see, because it will be different too. And just like they said earlier, and something I really liked that they said is that, not all of these movies are going to be like cape shit, kind of like heroes and villains. Swamp Thing is it's not going to feel anything like Supergirl, Superman, Batman, any of that, from a tonal perspective, which I'm really excited about.
Yeah, of all the like B-list characters and D-list characters, I'll just lump them together that were announced. Swamp Thing makes the most sense because out of all these characters, Booster Gold, the Authority, he has the biggest following. I have not read a lot of his stuff. I have no problem with the character. I've enjoyed what I have seen of him. So yeah, I'm fine with it. The one thing that I was not really understanding is like, this is going to be the last movie in the first chapter, as James Gunn said. So once again, I just from this standpoint, I'm just wondering, how is this all going to work? You got a Superman movie, you got an Authority movie, you got a Supergirl movie, and then at the end of it, Swamp Thing. And so I'm like, okay, I have no problem with doing Swamp Thing, but how does this work in terms of a first chapter or a first phase? And how does Swamp Thing end out that phase? I just, it almost seems like, because I'm not really seeing a linear path. Like with Marvel, I'm sorry, we're comparing to Marvel, but that's what DC wants. With Marvel, it's like, Iron Man, Thor, Iron Man 2, Captain America, Hulk. Clearly, these are just movies introducing characters until they all meet in the Avengers. But now, and they're all on that team in the comics. And even though they weren't well-known characters at that point, except for the Hulk, there was a clear pathway you could follow. But with this, it's like Superman, the Authority, Supergirl, and then Creature Commandos, and then Swamp Thing, and they're all connected, and Booster Gold. And so I'm like, okay, how? And then Batman, of course. And I'm like, okay. How does this all connect? I don't see it. I just don't understand what the actual plan is. It just seems very cherry picked. And I'm sure that there are fans who are very happy about this. By the way, the rumor is James Mangold, who did Logan, is going to direct Swamp Thing. So some of these choices, like Swamp Thing, sounds like they're very pleasing to fans, but I'm still wondering, okay, how does this connect? And it is a little bit confusing. I'm wondering, because the Authority, I do not see the Authority being PG-13, and I don't see Swamp Thing being PG-13. So I'm like, okay, are you going to have some movies that parents generally feel comfortable bringing their kids to, like Superman, or then other movies that are really dark, or maybe movies that maybe PG-13 but a bit more uncomfortable, like Supergirl? So they're just really pushing hard for this interconnected universe, but at the same time, I'm not actually seeing a plan here. I see a slate, but I'm not actually understanding the plan. So that's my thought on that.
Yeah, it's definitely like, I think that you got to look at it from James Gunn's perspective. Okay, so James Gunn's contract is up in like 3 years or 4 years. Okay,
yeah.
It was a 4-year deal, and he's already like 6 months into it. So we look at it from his perspective. He's just like, okay, what movies can I put in the first slate that will get me to a second slate before I get I think that that's literally just his mindset. And he's like, oh, okay, if we do a Swamp Thing movie and we market it just like a Deadpool, and we're like, oh, it's like red band, it's super inappropriate, it's like there's so much violence, it's so cool, like you got to check it out. Like that really worked for Deadpool. Like Deadpool, a lot of people saw it in the theaters just because they really, really leaned it. It's like, there's so much swearing, guys. There's so much blood.
It's funny because I knew people when Deadpool was coming out who did not like that kind of movie at all, but everyone was talking about it, and everyone was like, you have to see Deadpool. You have to see how shocking it is. And so they would go and be upset by it, and like, oh, Deadpool is so vulgar. And I'm like, you went and saw it. It's like, because no publicity is bad publicity. Everybody had to see the movie. So I see what you're saying with Swamp Thing.
Right. So I think that, but I think most of the movies are going to be PG-13 because he needs as many billion-dollar films as he can get in this slate. Because, also look at it from James Gunn's perspective, he has no proven track record doing what he's doing. This is like this is his first time being put. He's basically, he's a CEO, and that's just it's a big promotion. So if he gets these billion-dollar pictures, like let's say he has 3 of these that hit $1 billion, the Batman, Brave and the Bold. If he somehow gets Superman to hit $1 billion, which I don't see, but if he does, and then maybe Swamp Thing does like 700 to 800 million, and it gets a huge cult following, and people really go to the theaters to see it, then he's going to get renewed, and he's going to get a phase 2. So
imagine this. First of all, first of all, I was saying this earlier, there's nothing that could make Guardians 3 not do well at the box office, but let's imagine if Guardians 3 isn't well received. Like, I'm like, that's not going to look good for James Gunn. I don't think that will happen, but I was just thinking of that. But like, what's going to happen if like James Gunn's universe does not work out? Are we going to be sitting here in 4 years and being like, well, it's the Chris Pratt as the new CEO of DC Studios, and he has just released his new slate Booster Gold Black Label,
Oh
and
my gosh.
Marvel versus the DC Universe, and all that stuff.
Yeah, and from David Zassel's perspective, this is a bold hire. Like something like this, I was talking with somebody who's like was a big former executive at Disney, and we were just talking about this hire, and it's like nobody in the industry would have ever done this hire. It's a bold hire. Someone who's never been in this position before, to put him in this position. So I think that's why, like, my long-winded answer to why is Phase One, it seems so discombobulated and so weird, because I don't think that he's trying to build a universe in Phase One. I think he's just trying to he's just job, make money and get a contract renewal. And if he gets a contract renewal, he'll be like, okay, then I make a universe.
That's exactly. When I heard James Gunn was CEO, I was like, what the actual earth is happening? And apparently he wasn't even the first choice. It's like Peter Safran was going to be the CEO, and then he said he didn't want to do it without an executive, and he's friends with James Gunn. But like, the reason it frustrates me is as of this standing point, it does not sound like a cohesive plan. It sounds like more of the same kind of fracturing and decision making that DC's been doing. So I'm just like, are we going to be sitting here in 4 years talking about how Taika Waititi became the CEO of DC Studios, and how there's going to be a new Wonder Woman movie and 5 Joker movies and 6 Batmans? So I'm just pulling out like random directors that you would never expect to be a CEO. Patty Jenkins is the new CEO of DC Studios.
They're going to call it the Jokerverse. It's going to be 10 Jokers at once.
And they're all DC fans that went insane from all this madness. Maybe they'll bring Zack Snyder to be the CEO eventually. Hold out hope.
They're going to go back full circle, bring it all the way back. Okay, guys, so let us know down in the comments below what you think of the slate, what you like about it, what you don't like about it, things you would like to see changed. And, obviously we're assuming that there's not going to be crossover. Who knows? Maybe Batman will be in the Swamp Thing movie. I'm sure Amanda Waller will show up in like some of these movies. So we'll have to wait and see. But guys, thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed, be sure to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to this channel, and ring the notification bell. Teresa's channel will be added in the, it'll be like blue in the title, so you can click it, or in the description below, it'll also be down there. So go subscribe to her, ring the notification bell on her channel as well, and subscribe. Okay, thank you guys so much for watching. See you all in the next podcast. Peace out.